Welcome everybody and to this seminar organized by the Design and Innovation Department at Weatherhead School of Management. My name is Kalle Lyytinen. I'm the department head of Design and Innovation. And also on behalf of I'm also the director of Doctoral Management Program. This is a joint arrangement for running this seminar. And we are very happy. We have this tradition of trying to invite maybe once a year some accomplished scholar in fields which are relevant for both the department and the program to come here and give a talk on topics which should draw more interest among everybody. And today we have a person who really qualifies in all these accounts. His name is, as you can see, Vijay Govindarajan, if I can learn to pronounce it correctly. He comes from Coxe in Dartmouth. And he's extremely well known for his work on strategy and innovation and related topics. I learned actually yesterday that he originally comes from accounting, so he's a very unusual person. Typically accounting people don't get into the innovation. We know what innovative accounting means. Right. Actually, the topic which he's talking today is also very relevant for the doctoral management program because we have the global reach and understanding and focus on issues like sustainability and so forth. So we are looking now on topics which are coming to bear now, which is that how developing countries are influencing innovation and change in the developed countries. An interesting and challenging topic. So welcome, Vijay.
12:30 in the afternoon on a Friday, after heavy lunch. This is a deadly time slot for giving presentations. See what happens this time of the day when you start giving presentations? After about 30 minutes of presentation, you tend to lose 50% of the audience. They're gone. Not physically, but mentally they kind of wandered away. In fact, what research shows, this time of the day when you start giving presentations, after about 45 minutes of presentation, you tend to lose 75% of the audience. After an hour of presentation, you tend to lose 100% of the audience. So by 1:30, all of you will be gone. In fact, what research shows, this time of the day when your mind begins to wander away, what it wanders to is your wildest fantasies. So at least at a minimum, it's going to be an exciting 1 hour. That's all I can promise. What exactly do we mean by reverse innovation? You see, historically, companies innovated in a rich country like the US and then sold those products in a poor country like India. Reverse innovation is doing exactly the opposite. It's about innovating in a poor country like India and then selling those products in a rich country like the US. Now, when you stop to think about it, reverse innovation is a completely counterintuitive idea. Why? Because it's perfectly logical to see why a poor man would want a rich man's product. That's logical. A rich man is driving a car, poor man wants a car. A rich man has a cell phone, this poor lady, she wants a cell phone. But it is not that logical to see why a rich man would want a poor man's product. That's the essence of reverse innovation. And I contend reverse innovation has the potential to transform just about every industry, whether we are talking about education, transportation, energy, healthcare, high-tech, low-tech, you name it. Now, why would a rich man ever want a poor man's product? I want to illustrate that by taking one industry. The industry I'm going to choose is healthcare. Think about for a moment the healthcare industry in the richest country in the world, the United States of America. And we are debating healthcare as we speak today. And how do we characterize the healthcare industry in the US? First of all, we spend an awful lot of money on healthcare in the US. And after spending all this money, we cannot guarantee access to healthcare to every American. And even after spending all this money, our healthcare is not consistently world-class. So the US healthcare industry is characterized by very high cost, not necessarily best-in-class quality, and certainly we cannot guarantee universal access. Suppose I tell you, in poor countries, there are breakthrough innovation experiments that are going on as we speak in the healthcare sector, which are based on ultra-low-cost healthcare, world-class quality healthcare, and universal access. Wouldn't the rich guy not be interested? By the way, when I use the word rich country and poor country, I am not trying to make any value judgments here. This is not about whether a country is desirable to live or not. This is strictly the World Bank definition. And World Bank says, takes the average GDP per capita in the world and draw a line. And any country below the line is supposed to be poor. And according to that definition, there are 160 poor countries in the world. In my research, I have found well over 50 breakthrough innovation experiments going on in poor countries in the healthcare field, which are based on ultra-low-cost healthcare, world-class quality healthcare, and universal access. In the interest of time, let me describe 3 such experiments. The first breakthrough experiment is really relates to General Electric. This is GE Healthcare business. As you well know, GE Healthcare, they make medical imaging equipment. This would be an X-ray machine, a CAT scanner, an MR machine, an ultrasound. And what you are seeing here is an electrocardiogram or an ECG machine. And ECG, as you know, is the first point of diagnosis for heart attack. And GE innovated this machine for the American consumer. This is an extraordinarily powerful piece of equipment. This has saved lives. This has saved millions of American lives. Now, this ECG machine costs about $20,000. Now, think for a moment, how is a US hospital structured? If you walk into a US hospital, what you are likely to see is a sophisticated imaging center. And in that sophisticated imaging center, you will have appliance-sized equipment. There will be a $1 million X-ray machine, $2 million CAT scanner, $3 million MR machine, and this $20,000 ECG machine. And when the doctor asks the patient to go to the imaging center, the patient goes there. This is the way an American hospital is structured. I want you to shift the scene for a moment to India. Certainly, GE sells this $20,000 ECG machine in India for sure, to the top 10% of the economic pyramid. After all, there are going to be rich folks in poor countries, just like the way you have poor folks in rich countries. It may be a thin slice, but it exists. The question is, what about the remaining 90% of Indians? The remaining 90% of Indians cannot use this $20,000 ECG machine. Why? The first and the most obvious reason is affordability. You see, on this $20,000 ECG machine, a single ECG scan will cost $200. Now, 90% of Indians, most of them live in rural India. And in rural India, people are making $2 a day, sometimes even less. Now, you can do the mental math. If I'm making $2 a day and somebody is selling me an ECG scan for $200, I have to work for 100 days just to pay for one scan. That's only to determine whether I need further tests. I'm going to say, forget it. I can live with my chest pain. By the way, affordability is not the only reason why 90% of Indians are non-consumers of this $20,000 ECG machine. Suppose, let's make an assumption. 90% of Indians are willing and able to pay the $200 per scan. It's not true, but let's make that assumption. Even if they're waiting with $200 in their hands to pay for a scan, they will still be non-consumers. of this $20,000 ECG machine. Why? You see, in rural India, there are no hospitals with sophisticated imaging centers. That means you can't ask the patient to go to the imaging center. The imaging center has to come door to the patient. That means somebody has got to take this $20,000 ECG machine door to door. Unfortunately, this $20,000 ECG machine weighs 500 pounds. If something weighs 500 pounds, I can't put it in my backpack and take it door to door. Suppose by some magic, you're able to take this machine door to door, maybe in a bus. And let's also assume 90% of Indians are willing and able to pay the $200 per scan. They will still be non-consumers of this $20,000 ECG machine. Why? You see, this $20,000 ECG machine works only on house current. And as you well know, in rural India, electricity is either unavailable or unreliable. So even if you manage to take it to a remote corner of India, perhaps there is no electricity to operate this piece of equipment. Suppose, let's assume 90% of Indians are willing and able to pay the $200 per scan, and by some magic in a bus you were able to take it door to door, and let's also assume 90% of Indians have assured source of electricity. They will still be non-consumers of this machine. Why? You see, this $20,000 ECG machine is an extraordinarily powerful piece of equipment. It can be operated only by trained doctors. In fact, it usually comes with a 500-page user's manual. Well, in rural India, there are no trained doctors. That means 90% of Indians cannot use this $20,000 ECG machine for a variety of reasons. That doesn't mean 90% of Indians don't suffer from heart attack. This is my main point. Non-consumers in this world have exactly the same problem as consumers. Non-consumers have exactly the same dreams as consumers. Non-consumers have exactly the same aspiration as consumers. The reason they are non-consumers is they cannot consume the business model you are giving to the consumers. If they can consume it, they would have already become consumers. If you can do breakthrough innovation, if you can do exponential innovation, there is tremendous value we can unlock. In fact, today on planet Earth, there are 7 billion people. Of the 7 billion people, there are only 1 billion who have the purchasing power to buy the goods and services corporations make today. There are 6 billion non-consumers. And bulk of those non-consumers exist in these 160 poor countries. And converting those non-consumers into consumers represents, I say, the single biggest growth opportunity. In 2008, when I went to work for GE, one of the very first projects we got involved in is to innovate this $100 ECG machine. And on this $100 ECG machine, a single ECG scan will cost 10 cents. If a single ECG scan costs 10 cents, even if I'm making only $2 a day, I got a severe chest pain, I am willing to allocate 10 cents for a scan. Besides being affordable, this $100 ECG machine is extremely lightweight. It weighs less than a can of Coca-Cola. If something weighs less than a can of Coca-Cola, I can put it in my backpack and take it door to door. Not only that, this $100 ECG machine works on battery. On a single battery charge, it can produce 750 scans. Finally, this $100 ECG machine is extremely simple to operate. Perhaps you can't quite see it on this slide. It's got only 2 buttons. There is a green button, and then there is a red button. You push the green button, it works. You push the red button, it stops. As long as you know how to read traffic signs, you should be able to operate this machine. GE has converted a whole lot of non-consumers into consumers with this $100 ECG machine in India. But here is the real deal. Today, GE sells this machine in 225 countries, including in the US, which is the richest country in the world, where it is generating exciting new growth. Now, why would a rich man ever want a poor man's product? Imagine there is an accident on a highway in Cleveland. An ambulance is going there. There is no way you can put an appliance size $20,000 ECG machine inside the ambulance. But I can put a pocket size $100 ECG machine. First example of reverse innovation, where the innovation first gets adopted in a poor country, then comes to transform the lives of people in a rich country. Here is the second example. I can ask you what this building is. Because we are talking about healthcare, you may say it's a hospital. But if you said this is a 5-star hotel, I cannot blame you. This actually happens to be a cardiac hospital in Bangalore, India. It's called NH Hospital. This is the lobby of this hospital. It certainly looks like a lobby of a 5-star hotel. But that's not the point. The point is an open heart surgery in NH Hospital in Bangalore costs $3,000. Open heart surgery in the US will cost $150,000. Because open heart surgery in NH Hospital in Bangalore costs 50 times less, doesn't mean their quality is 50 times inferior. In fact, I don't even know how you can do poor quality heart surgery. One measure of quality in a heart surgery is mortality rates 30 days after surgery. The mortality rates 30 days after surgery in NH Hospital in Bangalore is 1.2%. The US average is 2%. So their quality is on par, maybe even slightly ahead. This is another important message I want to leave with you. Reverse innovation is not about lowering costs. No, no, no. Reverse innovation is about pushing the price performance envelope. It's about doing more with less. It's about doing a lot more with a lot less. It is about producing world-class quality at a dramatically low cost. Counterintuitive as it may seem, quality demanded by non-consumers in poor countries tend to be higher than quality demanded by consumers in rich countries. That is certainly true for open heart surgery. If you did an open heart surgery in the best cardiac hospital in the world, Cleveland Clinic, on an American, the surgeon doesn't need to have the same high skill level to reduce mortality, as compared to doing exactly the same open heart surgery on an Indian in NH Hospital in Bangalore. Why? You see, Indians tend to have bad hearts. Not bad people's hearts. We tend to have weak hearts genetically. Therefore, a surgeon in Bangalore doing the same procedure on an Indian has to have higher skill to reduce mortality. Not only that, those of us who are familiar with India, have gone to India, know the pollution in India is terrible as compared to the US. Hygienic conditions in India are pathetic as compared to the US. That means post-surgery, mortality tends to be very high in India. If you adjust for these risk factors, what NH Hospital has accomplished is truly remarkable. I believe I told you NH Hospital does not deny open heart surgery for anyone. They guarantee universal access. If someone can't pay, they do it free, or they do it at subsidized rates. With the result, 2/3 of the customers pay the $3,000. 1/3 of the customers, they do it free. By the way, NH Hospital in Bangalore is not charity. It's not a non-profit organization. It is as much a profit maximizer as General Electric or Pepsi or any other Fortune 500 company. In fact, as it turns out, NH Hospital in Bangalore is the most profitable cardiac hospital in the world. In fact, the most important investor in NH Hospital, besides the founder himself, is private equity firms from the US. One thing you know about private equity, they are mercenaries. They are never going to invest in something unless they get the maximum return. Can you believe this? A profit-maximizing firm gives away its products to 1/3 of the customers free of cost. Can you believe this? Selling price for 1/3 of your customer is 0. As it turns out, selling price for 1/3 of their customers is actually negative. Why? Because NH Hospital in Bangalore always source their patients, majority of their patients, from rural India. And these patients from rural India, they have to be transported to the Bangalore facility. And NH Hospital pays for their transportation. And post-surgery, they have to stay in the hospital. They pay for their hotel costs free of cost. And they do their surgery free of cost. And people from village, they don't travel alone. They come with a whole entourage. And he pays for the whole entourage. Can you believe this? For 1/3 of your customer, you're a profit-maximizing firm, your selling price is negative. And you only charge for 2/3 of the customer. And for the 2/3 of the customer, you charge 50 times less than what we charge in the US. And still recover the cost of 100% of your customers on 2/3 paying customers. And still return the best profits of any cardiac hospital in the world. The person who founded this hospital is Dr. Devi Shetty. Dr. Devi Shetty used to be the personal cardiac surgeon for Mother Teresa. That's where he got the compassion to do more with less, to do a lot more with a lot less. I want to show you a short video so that you get a sense for Dr. Devi Shetty and the great institution that he has built.
With a population of over 1 billion, affordable healthcare is out of reach of a vast majority of Indians. Nearly 700 million people in India have no access to specialist care, either due to lack of reach or lack of affordability.
When I came back to this country, there was no cardiac surgery. So hardly any cardiac surgery. There was nothing like a pediatric cardiac surgery. So we started the whole concept of pediatric cardiac surgery.
In less than a decade since inception, Narayana has become Asia's largest cardiac care center. Surgeons at the hospital perform a large number of different cardiac surgeries and procedures, including complex pediatric surgeries. Today, the hospital performs as many as 30 to 35 heart surgeries a day and 70 to 80 cardiac procedures. Narayana also does the largest number of pediatric heart surgeries in the world. Each day, about 2,500 patients visit the outpatient department of the Bangalore facility alone. And yet, the hospital has achieved a price point affordable to the average Indian.
We are essentially a heart hospital which proved to the world that with the $1,800 you can do a major heart operation. So essentially we want to reduce the cost of high-tech healthcare, make it affordable to the citizens of this world.
Those in need of surgery travel to Narayana for treatment, and the hospital treats patients from across the world.
My daughter has a hole in the heart. Well, let me preface this. I also have a dual citizenship in the U.S. Living in the U.S. for the most part, my mother lived with me, and she has cases. She's somebody I had to take to the hospital very often. She has diabetes and a whole. So I took her. We lived in New York, so I've taken her to the best hospitals as far as I know. And when I came in here to their cardiac unit, I was blown away. I'm in awe. That's the only way I can explain it. I get back so emotional because there's so many more people than my daughter who can't even afford what I can afford. And in India, they're getting that help. And then it makes me wonder about countries like mine. So I'm praying for Dr. Shetty. Am I saying his name right? And people like him to develop this module, not just for India, but for the world.
Ultra low cost, world-class quality, universal access, and still be highly profitable. How does he do this? As an example, Dr. Devi Shetty and NH Hospital, they buy the same piece of equipment you can find in the best-in-class cardiac hospitals in the world. You visit Cleveland Clinic, and then you go to visit NH Hospital in Bangalore. Both have the same CAT scanner, the same MR machine, the same PET scanner, the same X-ray machine, the same ultrasound, the same ECG. That means he can also guarantee the same world-class quality that you see in Mayo Clinic or Mass General or Cleveland Clinic. But then his cost is also going to be at the same level as what you see in the US. How come his cost is 50 times less? Because he uses his equipment 50 times more. Isn't this not what we learned in Operations 101? Isn't this not what Henry Ford taught us 100 years ago? If you can spread your fixed costs across massive volume and fully utilize it, you can bring the cost per unit down. If you mass produce an automobile, cost per automobile comes down. Isn't this not what we learned in Operations 101? What he has done is, he has taken everything we know from industrial organization and applying it to medicine. He is mass producing open heart surgery. He is doing open heart surgery on an assembly line. Now, if you tell an American, hey, here is a cardiac hospital which does open heart surgery on an assembly line, what would be their first reaction? Quality has to suffer. I ask why. We don't complain about the quality of automobiles when it comes off of assembly line. What's so special about open heart surgery? Counterintuitive as it may seem, quality dramatically goes up when you mass produce open heart surgery. Why? Because their surgeons do so many open heart surgeries, they are at the cutting edge of their fields. They have seen all possible complications. In fact, there is not just one type of open heart surgery. There are many types of open heart surgeries. Suppose let's assume there are 10 different types of open heart surgeries. Because of very high volumes, they can ask a cardiac surgeon to specialize in one of the 10. Specialization leads to high quality. Isn't this not what Henry Ford taught us 100 years ago? In fact, in the video, they talk about pediatric open heart surgery. This is doing open heart surgery on a newborn. Because they do open heart surgery on so many newborns, you can ask a cardiac surgeon just to specialize in pediatric open heart surgery. Essentially, he has taken everything we know from industrial sector and putting it to good use in healthcare. I want you to contrast what he is doing with what goes on in US hospitals. You walk into a US hospital, see their sophisticated imaging center, there will be a $1 million X-ray machine, $2 million CAT scanner, $3 million MR machine used 15% of the time. 85% of the time, it is sitting idle. Why? Because in America, we believe Americans have a birthright to have the MR machine available whenever we need it. I ask why. Suppose if Ford Motor Company started to operate their factory that way, keeping their most expensive piece of equipment 85% time idle. What will happen to the cost of automobiles? Ultra low cost, world-class quality, universal access. If this is what NH Hospital is able to achieve, what is not to like about that in the US? By the way, Devi Shetty and Narayana Health, last year they brought their ultra low cost, world-class quality business model close to the US. And they opened up, which is ultimately going to become the world's largest cardiac facility in the world, a 2,000-bed cardiac facility in Cayman Islands. And Cayman Islands I don't know, any of you have gone there, it has got only a population of 50,000. So he is not putting up a 2,000 bed cardiac facility for a population of 50,000. Cayman Islands happens to be a 1-hour flight from Miami. He is targeting American patients and wants to demonstrate how you can do open heart surgery for a fraction of the cost it takes to do it in the US. And then spend 3 weeks vacation in Cayman Islands, as compared to having an open heart surgery in Cleveland Clinic and spend 3 weeks in winter suffering after surgery. Second example of reverse innovation, where an innovation takes place and gets adopted in India first, and then it comes to transform the lives of people in the US. Here's the third example. I can ask you what this picture is. Again, this picture is of someone who has unfortunately lost his leg. When someone loses his leg, we give that person an artificial leg. In the US, an artificial leg will cost $20,000. Now, this gentleman you may or may not know, he is actually a citizen of Thailand. He goes by the name Dr. J. And Dr. J is actually a medical doctor. And Dr. J wanted to create an artificial leg for amputees in Thailand. Thailand is a poor country like India. So you can't sell someone, an amputee in Thailand, a $20,000 artificial leg, because majority of the people in Thailand are making $2 a day. If I'm making $2 a day and somebody sells me a $20,000 artificial leg, I have to work for 10,000 days to pay for it. And if there are 200 working days in a year, I have to work for 50 years. That doesn't mean amputees in Thailand don't need artificial leg. Non-consumers have exactly the same needs as consumers. Non-consumers have exactly the same aspiration as consumers. It is for us to come up with breakthrough business models to unlock that value. So Dr. J decided he will create an artificial leg for $30. As I pointed out to you earlier, reverse innovation is not about reducing costs. It is about pushing the price performance envelope to a whole different level. Just like open heart surgery, the quality demanded by amputees in Thailand for an artificial leg is higher than the quality demanded by consumers of artificial leg in the US. Why? Think of it this way. Suppose you received an artificial leg in the US, you are walking on nicely paved roads. Whereas if you're an amputee in Thailand and you received an artificial leg, you are walking on uneven roads. That means you are putting a lot more stress on that artificial leg in Thailand as compared to the US. So it's got to have higher quality to withstand that stress. Not only that, unlike Americans, people in Thailand have some very peculiar habits. They squat on the floor. Americans don't do that. They sit cross-legged. Americans don't do that. Imagine you're an amputee in Thailand, you received an artificial leg, you are squatting on the floor. You are sitting cross-legged. How much stress you are putting on that artificial leg? 80% of the people in Thailand work in agriculture. In agriculture, the field is not just uneven, it is wet. Imagine you are an amputee in Thailand, you received an artificial leg, and you have to work on agricultural fields. It traps your artificial leg. Think about how much strength it has got to have to withstand wetlands. People in Thailand don't just bicycle to work. They bicycle for work. In the US, we just bicycle to work. In the US, we use bicycle as an entertainment or for short distances. Whereas there are many people in Thailand, their livelihood depends on bicycle. Imagine you're an amputee in Thailand. You received an artificial leg, and then you have to pedal that bicycle 18 hours a day to make a living. How much punishment you're giving to that artificial leg? Or you have to climb a coconut tree and pluck the coconut with an artificial leg. I want you to imagine for a moment the breakthrough innovation challenge Dr. J faced. He has to create an artificial leg which is superior in quality to the $20,000 artificial leg at a $30 price point. This is the reverse innovation challenge. He came up with 2 breakthrough innovations. That's how he was able to push the price performance envelope. The first breakthrough innovation was, you see, in the raw materials he used. In the US, we use raw materials like titanium. See, titanium is a very, very expensive raw material. Of course, Dr. J, if your whole budget is a $30 artificial leg, you're not going to be able to use titanium. Neither is titanium even available in Thailand. So his breakthrough innovation was he designed his $30 artificial leg with recycled yogurt plastic containers. When you design an artificial leg with recycled yogurt plastic containers, cost goes down. In fact, cost goes to 0 because you throw it away anyway. But this is not just about lowering costs. This is about pushing the price performance envelope. The resulting $30 artificial leg of Dr. J turned out to be extremely lightweight. Imagine having an artificial leg made of titanium. As a human being, how much weight you got to carry with yourself? Whereas Dr. J's $30 artificial leg was lightweight, comfortable, and durable. And the second breakthrough innovation he had, which is what pushed the price performance envelope, was in the fitting process. See, in the US, artificial legs are, the fitting process is done by extremely qualified technical people. Because they're extremely qualified, they're also extremely expensive. And they work with the patient for many weeks to fit the artificial leg. Of course, Dr. J, if you have a $30 price point, you don't have a budget to employ extremely qualified technicians. So his breakthrough innovation was he trained amputees who received artificial leg. He trained them to fit artificial leg for others. And these amputee technicians pushed the price performance envelope. They obviously brought down the cost. I mean, these are unemployed people. They were so happy to get a job. But this is not just about only bringing the cost down. It is simultaneously doing more with less. The amputee technicians in Thailand turned out to be much better fitter of artificial leg than the highly trained technicians in the US. Why? For one thing, they weren't just approaching this as a job. They were approaching this as God's work because they got their life back. Because they got their life back, they were approaching this with enormous passion. Imagine if you do any job with that level of passion, you're going to excel. Not only that, based on personal experience, they know where it hurts when you fit. What kinds of exercises you should do to accelerate progress. Not only that, these amputee technicians were wonderful in converting non-consumers into consumers. Why? Because if someone asked them, why do I need to buy your $30 product? I see on the shelf a $20,000 product. Why do I need to buy your $30 product? They can point to their own leg and say it works. Can you really design an artificial leg for $30 that works? Let's watch a short video.
Working in teams. So they can freely work with this on the field and we don't need to change their profession.
See, he jumps. You can see what stress it must have.
About the years.
1 kilometer in 4 minutes 30 seconds.
A couple of years ago, Dr. J decided he will fit an artificial leg for an animal, and the national animal in Thailand is elephants. And elephants typically go next door for work. The next door is Myanmar. And as you know, Myanmar is full of landmines. So sometimes these elephants accidentally step on a landmine and hurt themselves. The picture that you're seeing is a picture of baby Mosha. She's an 8-month-old elephant. She's here with her mom. And baby Mosha and her mom went into Myanmar. Mom was working. Baby Mosha was having fun. But accidentally, baby Mosha stepped on a landmine and lost one of her legs. When an elephant loses a leg, it dies very fast. Why? Because even a baby elephant weighs 2,500 pounds. If you weigh 2,500 pounds, you can't balance yourself on 3 legs. And if such a big object is immobile, it dies very fast. And as you well know, elephants typically have longer lifespan as compared to human beings. Humans can live for 75 years. Elephants typically live for 100 years. So 100 years of life for baby Mosha would have been denied. So Dr. J decided he will fit a $30 artificial leg for baby Mosha. Again, I want you to think about the breakthrough innovation challenge in this project. Because this baby elephant is going to put 2,500 pounds of weight on that artificial leg. Think about how much stress it's got to withstand. Elephants don't wear shoes. That means you're going to punish that artificial leg. Can you really create an artificial leg for an elephant for $30 that it works? Let's see how happy baby Mosha is. The $30 artificial leg is now part of the Guinness Book of World Records. I got a very simple question. If someone can design an artificial leg for an elephant for $30, which has got to be the highest degree of difficulty innovation challenge, what excuse do we have in the US for making an artificial leg for a human being for $20,000? I contend reverse innovation has the potential to transform education, transportation, energy, you name it. Perhaps let me just close with this and then take questions that you have. For me, we have lost our sense of the whole idea behind innovation in this country. If you ask an American executive, we want you to innovate, the first thing they ask is, give me more money. You want me to do more innovation? I need more money. I think we need to innovate with less money. The $30 artificial leg is actually innovation with less resources. The $100 ECG machine is innovation with less resources. The $3,000 open heart surgery is doing innovation with less resources. In fact, we must change the very definition of innovation from value for money to value for many. And value for many is about doing more with less. It's about doing a lot more with a lot less for a lot of people. It's all about frugal thinking. The $100 ECG machine is frugal thinking. The $30 artificial leg is frugal thinking. The $3,000 open heart surgery is frugal thinking. If you want another example, a couple of years ago, India launched a mission to Mars. You may have probably heard about that. By the way, when India launched the mission to Mars, at that time, there were only 3 countries which have launched a mission to Mars, which is, these are 3 extremely resource-rich countries. US, obviously, Russian Space Agency, and European Space Agency. The 4th country to do it is an extremely poor country called India. But that's not the real story. The real story is India's mission to Mars costed $75 million. Just about India was launching a mission to Mars, America also launched a mission to Mars, which costed $2 billion. I want you to think about this for a moment. India mission to Mars cost $75 million. America's mission to Mars, just about the same time, cost $2,000 million. By the way, both are doing exactly the same thing. As we speak, both the satellites are orbiting around Mars. That's what I mean by frugal thinking. In fact, when India was launching its mission to Mars that year, there was a movie, I don't know how many of you have seen this, it actually won an Oscar. It's a Hollywood movie called Gravity. And Gravity is a movie about a failed mission to Mars. And that movie costed $150 million. Hollywood make-believe failed mission to Mars cost twice as much as India's successful mission to Mars. Perhaps the best way I can wrap this up is, if you take 100 poor people at random and 100 rich people at random, I say there is absolutely no difference between these two groups. Poor people have the same needs as the rich. Poor people have the same wants as the rich. Poor people have the same dreams as the rich. Poor people have the same aspiration as the rich. Why can't they have the same access to opportunities? That's at the heart of reverse innovation. Thank you very much.
Hi, I wanted to find out if you had any examples of innovation that was maybe something that we haven't thought about in the so-called resource-rich countries that could come over here and actually improve our lives. So, like the examples you gave were, kind of started here, and then we did innovations around, price improvement and efficiencies and things like that. But are there any examples of things where it's like a brand new product or service that came?
It doesn't even exist in the US, you are saying. It's a very good question. I don't see why not, because the context is so different. Maybe there is a new solution we haven't even experienced in the US. Just starts first. Whereas the examples that I am giving are ones where we created the rich world product first, and somebody then takes it and dramatically brings it on. Maybe there are examples that doesn't come to my mind. I don't see why not. Pardon me? HIV medication. Did it really start first in poor countries? $10 medication was what cost $6,000. There you go.
You also have mobile phone payments using minutes as currency started in Africa.
Yeah, but he would still say there was a payment system for phones here, and they came up with the different. But these are good examples, because somebody there thinks of a fundamentally different way of competing.
Do you think that this reverse is because of arbitrage between the wealthy and the non-wealthy countries? Arbitrage in regulations. A doctor here has to pay whatever it is, $500,000 in malpractice insurance. The labor cost is different. The needs are different. The drivers for making money. I can't make money selling $30 replacement, foots in the United States. There's just not enough market. So you don't do what is, designed. The design differences are just there, and that is what is driving this, isn't it?
It's a great point. I think arbitrage is also at the heart of it. Some of the arbitrage arguments are somewhat exaggerated, like labor cost, for instance. Because certainly Indian labor is a lot cheaper than the US labor. But I did take a look at NH Hospital in Bangalore and adjusted their labor cost to US labor costs for both doctors and nurses and paramedics, etc. Then, right now, the cost is $150,000 in the US versus $3,000 for NH Hospital. That $3,000 moves to $15,000. So it's still 90% less than what we have in the US. Certainly labor cost accounts for some, but does not all. You said regulations? Yes, because the regulatory environment in India In fact, the healthcare industry in India is hardly regulated. So it is almost a free competition, as we would find in other sectors in this country, whereas in the US it's a highly regulated system. Does that account for some of the differences? The answer is yes. So context does matter. Here is my point. Even though the context matters, even under the current regulatory frame in the US today, there are hospitals operating in the US which have borrowed best practices from NH Hospital in Bangalore. Therefore, even under the current regulatory scheme, there are hospitals in the US which have taken some of the breakthrough ideas from these Indian hospitals. So ultimately, I say it is not because of regulation, it's not because of labor costs. If there is a problem, it's a leadership problem. If American leaders will stand up to it, I think everything is possible.
It seems to me there are certainly products where U.S. companies do manage to innovate in this way, where you could say, you know, computing power, for example, does get cheaper and quality gets higher, and that works. But there are clearly certain parts of the economy where that doesn't happen, and I think you pointed to a great one. What else do you think are, what are other causes? Why would this come from India? It just seems that that gap to say $20,000 in the US, $30 in India, right? How could that never have struck anyone here before? Yeah, that's something doable?
It's a great question. In fact, the $100 ECG machine is something that the GE engineers in Milwaukee should have been able to create too. It's nothing genius about the Indian team that it created the $100 ECG machine. I would completely agree with you. That is why I go back to his point. I agree the context matters. Why does the context matters? Because of severe constraint. Because India faces severe constraint, there is a sense of urgency to think about the $100 machine. Whereas when you talk to the Milwaukee engineers for GE Healthcare in the US, for them, the $100 ECG machine is the last thing they want to think about, because the US consumer is waiting to pay the $20,000. When they are waiting to pay the $20,000, my approach is to keep on adding features. That is how our innovation game is always about adding features. Of course, we always come up with a simple product originally. Always we come up with a simple product. But then our approach is to add bells and whistles. Soon, we add bells and whistles consumers don't even need, but they are willing to pay. I'll give you a good example. 100 years ago, Mr. Gillette came up with a breakthrough innovation called razor and a blade. That was a breakthrough innovation. The reason it was a breakthrough innovation was he was able to sell you a low-cost razor platform. Once he sold you the low-cost laser platform, then he sold you the blade, and he was making money on the blades. We even today call that business model razor and blade business model, where you sell something low-cost platform and get an annuity on the blades, which is high margin. Now, once he came up with it, he founded a company called Gillette Company. Then they said, let's do some more innovation. And the first innovation was actually a very good innovation, which was a two-track blade. From a single blade, they went to a two-blade system. Now, the reason they went to a two-blade system is two-blade system shaves twice as fast as a single-blade system. If with a single blade, it took you 30 minutes to do a shave, with two-track, it took you 15 minutes. And Americans value time. So the two-track was a success. Then they wanted to innovate. So what they did, they spent even more R&D, whether you believe it or not. They created Mach 3, which is a three-blade system. Nobody can convince me a three-blade system shaves 3 times faster than a single-blade system. But Americans are willing to pay. Then they wanted to do more innovation. They spent even more R&D money. Whether you believe it or not, they created Fusion, which is a 5-blade system. Nobody can tell me a 5-blade system shaves 5 times faster than a single-blade system. Soon you will have a 25-blade system. This is the problem with American companies. We just keep on adding bells and whistles because we don't feel the constraint from the customer. And emerging markets is full of extreme constraints. Constraints can be limiting or liberating. If the right mindset, it can be liberating.
You've given us some really good examples. Thank you for that. Looking forward, what kind of sort of industries or products do you think that are ripe for this kind of reverse innovation?
It's a great question. If I were to put my finger on it, I think the three sectors where I'm likely, I think this is possible everywhere. The three sectors where it is likely to happen is education. In fact, in this country, education industry is more broken than healthcare. Education, healthcare, obviously, and energy. I say these are three places where I almost say, of course, it is possible in financial services. Somebody talked about mobile payments. But I would say these three, to me, are sort of on the industrial sector. These three are great opportunities and for plenty of reverse innovation.
You mentioned mass production and volume. If this is a volume play, isn't this what internet companies are doing with the zero marginal cost and freemium models? We all get most of the internet products free.
It's a great question because in some ways the internet business model is based on network effects, and network effects are primarily based on getting reach. So if you're Facebook, you don't worry about profits. What you worry about as a Facebook is to create the maximum number of customers, because if there are 1 billion users of Facebook, then I want to join that network because the network effect is very powerful, and therefore in some sense it resembles the kind of business models we have seen in India, because the network effect itself has an enormous value in terms of bringing down cost and ultimately giving you enormous profits.
Yeah. You mentioned passion only briefly. Could you talk a little bit more about the role of passion in innovation and how this fits with your...
The role of what?
Passion.
Passion. Great question. I think if there is, besides leadership, I said leadership is lacking in this country. If we need the courageous leaders to adopt this innovation, even more than leadership, I'll go to the passion that you talked about, which is I go to the purpose. I think we have lost that in this country. I think most companies in the US, if you ask them what's their purpose, they would say it's to make money. Making money can never be a purpose. Purpose has to be about doing good. Of course, you have to make money to achieve your purpose, but maximizing shareholder value can never be the purpose of an enterprise. Of course, you have to make maximum money so that you can achieve your purpose. In fact, if I were to draw a 2x2, if you can visualize the 2x2, on one axis, let's say it is business heart versus social heart. Another axis, it is business mind versus social mind. Now, what I mean by business heart versus social heart is business is the objective of the enterprise. Business heart says, my objective is to maximize shareholder value. Social heart says, I want to do good. Now, business mind versus social mind is what kinds of tools and techniques and processes you use to reach decisions. Business mind is what you teach in the Weatherhead School of Management. All the good things we teach in business schools, 5 forces, 4 Ps, core competence, this analysis, that analysis, etc. That's what I mean by business mind. Social mind is seat at the pan, decision making. Do no analysis. Just pull out a decision from thin air. Now, historically, corporations, certainly American corporations, occupied this quadrant on this 2x2, business heart and business mind. They used solid analytical techniques, and their heart was to maximize shareholder value. To the extent they wanted to focus on corporate social responsibility, it's kind of a sideshow. It's to check the box. Historically, NGOs occupied social heart and social mind. So they want to do good, but they don't know how to make good decisions. Therefore, they never scale. NGOs never scale. NH Hospital in Bangalore a social heart and business mind. In fact, if you, sometimes I even wonder, I got to know Dr. Devi Shetty very well. Sometimes I wonder, is he a capitalist or is he a socialist? It's a very interesting question, because if you really ask him, the reason he came to open NH Hospital in Bangalore is he wants to make healthcare a human right. That's his purpose in life. He wants to disassociate affluence from healthcare. Healthcare should not depend on whether you have money to pay or not. He always used to tell me, BG, a poor man's heart is the same as a rich man's heart. There is no difference in the heart of these two people. And they should get the same high quality care. If the poor man can't pay, that should not be a reason for him to get denied care. That is his whole philosophy. By the way, I want you to think about this for a second. In India, and there are many Indians here, in India, if you are very, very smart as an Indian, they ask you to do medicine. My dad didn't ask me to do medicine because he didn't consider me very smart. If you are very, very smart in your family, they will say, you must go to medicine. And if you are extremely smart in medicine, you do cardiology. This guy, Dr. Devi Shetty, got his cardiology degree in India. That means he's very, very smart. Then he went to Guy's Hospital in UK. That's where he practiced. He went to Guy's Hospital in UK. And Guy's Hospital, you got to be the best cardiologist in India to be selected at Guy's Hospital in UK. What I'm saying is, he is probably 0.000001% of population in the world. He could have made a ton of money by only operating on Arab sheiks and billionaires in the world, because he is so good. He is probably one of the leading cardiologists in the world. He got exposed to Mother Teresa. That's where he got his calling. He told me, Vijay, I had a completely different view of life. I wanted to make a ton of money by catering to the rich. When I became personal cardiac surgeon for Mother Teresa, he said, I am a scientist. I never believe in God. I am a scientist. But first time I felt I was close to God. First time I felt somehow I was close to God when I was with Mother Teresa. And she convinced me and she told me, you must do what I do, which is to be compassionate, but do it using your skills. Using your skills, you do what I do, which is to do open heart surgery for every human being on planet Earth. And then he realized, I can't do it free of cost. Charity is not scalable. Charity is not scalable. If you do things free, there is only a limited amount I can do. But if I can create a business, then it keeps on giving. So he said, I must be as shrewd a businessman as General Electric or Pepsi or Philips or any other company. I must use everything that you teach in B school and apply it. But I must have goodness in my heart. So is he a capitalist? Is he a socialist? It's an interesting question. Is he a philanthropist or is he a businessman? And if you ask him, he will say, I am in it to really serve God. I am in it to make healthcare a human right. But he is as shrewd a businessman as I've ever come across. He knows his cash flows. He knows his bottom line. He knows his costs. He knows everything. He's one of the amazing businessmen. So therefore, passion is, I think, at the forefront of it. We got to find our purpose. We got to find that passion. Without that, this doesn't happen. And if you really want to serve this non-consumer segment, I say corporations have to have a social heart and a businessman. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Maybe, do we have time for what?
Thank you, Professor, for this fantastic seminar. I'm a senior undergraduate in Weatherhead. Building on the question of passion, can I interpret the passion as like human curiosity? Such curiosity is like building on like by asking the right question and find the right solution to the society. And also building on what you said about social impact from business, I think can interpret as one type of business is is profit driven, and the outcome is making profit. But the other type of business is their start point is not profit. Although the profit is the eventual outcome, but their start point is to try to solve things, try to find a problem first, and try to find solutions to this society. And also they combine the curiosity, also their expertise and their skills in those industries and their comprehensive knowledge over the industry. Although the same two types of business, they have the same outcome as making profit, but the social impact and their start point is totally different.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing those perspectives. I hope I'm answering the question that you are wanting to know. This is what I would say. As it turns out, the NH hospital in Bangalore is a for-profit hospital. As I said, major investor in it is a private equity company. It's a publicly listed company now. You can go check their market price. I think last time I checked it was $1.5 billion. And Dr. Devi Shetty owns 65% of the hospital. So he's worth $650 million. It's not a bad return for someone like that. But you don't have to be a for-profit hospital to worry about profits. Even a pure social impact firm which has no profit, which is a non-profit company, a non-profit social enterprise must worry about profits. If you are not profitable, you are not sustainable. Therefore, I may call it surplus. Even a non-profit must have social heart. They certainly have social heart. They must have business mind. If you don't have business mind, you don't generate surplus. If you don't generate surplus, you go out of business. Therefore, NGOs must develop business mind. Corporations must develop social heart. That's my point. Therefore, in fact, the very distinction that we have between for-profit and non-profit, in fact, in the strategy field is full of dichotomies, low cost or differentiation, for-profit or non-profit, shareholder or stakeholder. Are you low cost or high quality? I say this dichotomy has completely destroyed the strategy field. NH Hospital is no trade-offs, no compromises. That's the way we need to view firms. You see a for-profit or a non-profit, I say that distinction is meaningless really. In his mind, he is both because he has got a non-profit mindset, a for-profit kind of tools and techniques. I say that's at the heart, if you will. Do we have time for one more question? 147,
yeah. Your book is titled Three-Box Solution. What is that?
Great question. You see, I have a framework which I created almost 40 years ago, which has guided my entire career. And that is based around these three-box thinking. And the three boxes are, box one is manage the present. That's about improve the efficiency of what you're doing today. Box two is about selectively forget the past. And box three is about create the future. Manage the present, box one. Selectively abandon the past, box two. And create the future, box three. And what I found working with companies is most organizations way over focus on box one and then think they are doing strategy. While box one is important, strategy is always about box two and box three. And the challenge for every organization in box three is, how are you going to create your future in the year 2027? And if you want to create your future in the year 2027, then you have a job to do in box two. Namely, you have to selectively forget. By the way, let me clarify one thing. Strategy for any organization, which includes General Electric, which includes Case Western Reserve University, is about becoming a leader in the year 2027. That's what strategy is about. But strategy is not about what you have to do in the year 2027. Strategy is very much about the projects you are executing in 2017 across the 3 boxes so that you intersect with the year 2027. How are you allocating resources today? How is the organization energy focused today across the 3 boxes so that you stay relevant in the next decade? Box 1 is competition for the present. It's all about efficiency. Box 2, box 3 is competition for the future. It's all about breakthrough innovation. And strategy is always about how do we create the future while managing the present. The box 2, box 3, box 1 framework is what has guided me for the last 40 years. And reverse innovation is an example of box 3. That's what it is. Because for GE Healthcare, their $20,000 ECG machine is their box 1 present. The $100 ECG machine that they created in 2008 was their box 3 breakthrough innovation experiment. Both are important. Another way I can put it is this. My message to organizations is future is now. Future is never about what you have to do in that future. And the reason why this is so hard is today you have 2 jobs to do. One job is in box 1. Another job is in box 2, box 3. Yet there are inherent conflicts, inherent paradoxes, inherent tensions between the 2. I say this is the central strategic challenge. I will give you an example. Think about a box 3 activity for an individual. What is a box 3 activity for an individual? Is to do exercise every day. If you did exercise every day, you are assured of future health. Now, why is it so difficult to practice this simple commonsensical logic? And the reason being, if you don't invest in box 3 today, it does not hurt you today. That's why you slip. If you don't invest in box 3 today, your profits are not going down today. It's going down in the year 2027. That's why it's easy not to invest in the future today. So you may wake up today morning and say, you know what, today I got to go listen to this Vijay Govindarajan. I haven't done all my homework. I got a lot of emails to check. Let me skip exercise today. If you skip exercise today, your health does not decay today. It decays in the year 2020. That's why it's easy for you to slip. By the way, your health actually decays today. The decay is so small, the decay is so invisible, you slip. Part of my point is with the 3-box solution is future comes in daily doses. Future never arrives all of a sudden in the future. Because it comes in daily doses, we have to, as an organization, we have to have projects in all the 3 boxes every day. And reverse innovation is an example of box 3. Maybe let me just take a minute, since we got about 4 minutes to wrap up this. By the way, the whole idea behind reverse innovation is a very simple, commonsensical notion, which is about globalization of knowledge, globalization of ideas. That's what reverse innovation is all about. US, we have lots of knowledge, lots of ideas, but we don't have a monopoly on knowledge and ideas. In fact, if you stop to think about it, the greatness of America is accepting globalization of knowledge. That's what has made America so great, because we've always been curious about best talent, best ideas, best knowledge from wherever in the world, we absorb it. That's the strength of America, isn't it, historically? That's how we built this great country called United States of America. I certainly benefited from it. Lots of people in this room and millions of immigrants have benefited from this. You know, I come from a very poor family. I wasn't invited into the US because I had a lot of resources. Millions of people like me, without any resources, have been asked to come and build this great country. Because this country is based on ideas. This country is never based on resources. And this country accepts ideas can come from anywhere. In fact, I still remember in the late 70s when I came into this country, I had $11 in my pocket. And it was not a non-stop flight. It stopped in London. And I saw Cadbury's milk chocolate. I've never eaten milk chocolate before. So I was kind of tempted. But it costed $6. So I was kind of agonized. Should I spend $6 out of my $11 to buy that chocolate? Then I told myself, well, if I landed in Boston, with $5 or $11, what difference does it make? So I bought that bar of chocolate. You invite into this country who spend 50% of their assets on a bar of chocolate. This country is never about resources. It's always about accepting globalization of ideas. In fact, I still remember the very first week when I came into this country, I got an envelope, a letter from Publishers Clearinghouse. I didn't even open the envelope. Outside of the envelope, it said, Vijay Govindarajan, you have already won $10 million. I said, I love America. One day $5, next day 10 million. But jokes apart, that's how we built this great country of America. We accepted globalization of ideas. Therefore, if you want to continue the greatness of America, we must be curious about the problems of the people in poor countries. To make America great, really, we need to be compassionate to the problems of the people in poor countries. Not because of helping them, it's to help you. Because ultimately, all these solutions are going to come to make this country strong. Another way I can put it is, the number one problem in the world today is income inequality. By far the problem that is plaguing humanity is income inequality. The difference in income between the rich and the poor has reached alarming proportions. In fact, 85 richest people in the world, if you add their wealth, it is more than the total wealth of the bottom 3.6 billion people. I want you to think about this for a second. You take 85 individuals at the top, add their wealth. Then you take the bottom 3,600 million individuals, add their wealth. The 85 person's wealth is more than the total wealth of 3,600 million people. This is not a sustainable model. We know that. This is the whole genesis of Brexit. This is the problem in Colombia. This is the problem we fought in the American politics. This is a real problem. Now, how do you solve this problem? There are two fundamentally different approaches to solve this problem. One model, the extreme form of it, is communism. And communism tries to attack income inequality by making everybody equal, by making everybody poor. It has a fundamental flaw. In fact, in India, we tried this. In 1947, when we won independence, we used communism, a form of communism. What was the result? After 50 years of practicing communism, we bankrupted India. That's all we did. Communism cannot solve income inequality. The other way to solve income inequality is capitalism, the American form of capitalism. The 20th century capitalism, that too has miserably failed us. In fact, the American form of capitalism has made income inequality worse. In 1993 in India, we abandoned communism because it didn't work. We bankrupted the country. We had no choice. So we embraced American form of capitalism. What happened in the last 20 years? One thing American form of capitalism does is to grow the pie. That it does. In fact, the India's GDP was 200 billion in 1993. It is now 2 trillion. So it grew by 10 times. But the income inequality worsened. There is one metric for income inequality called Gini coefficient. The Gini coefficient in India is a lot worse today than 20 years ago. So American form of capitalism also doesn't work. The trickle-down economics doesn't work. What is the answer? I say the answer is we must innovate capitalism itself. We must create social hard business mind. We must create compassionate capitalism. We must create responsible capitalism. What does responsible capitalism mean? What it means to me is, all of you in this room, you got great education in Case Western. You're going to join organizations and use your skills and innovate for the rich, which you should do. My hope is at least a fraction of you will join corporations, use your great training, and use the corporation resources to innovate for the poor. When you innovate for the poor, you close income gap. When Devi Shetty innovated for the poor and does a $3,000 open heart surgery, he is not only making money, it's capitalism. He's a capitalist. He is not a communist. He is a capitalist. He makes money. Not just any money, he makes the most profits of any cardiac hospital in the world. But he is also solving the income inequality, because that poor person would have died otherwise. He is extending the productive life of that person. When Dr. J gives the $30 artificial leg, he is also solving income inequality, because he is giving income mobility for that amputee. I say reducing income inequality has to be the highest form of human achievement. That is the opportunity you have in your generation, and that's the promise of reverse innovation. Thank you very much.